David, tell us a bit about PowerUp and what they do.
So PowerUp Off-Grid Services, we've created this minimum viable product. It's our battery power station, which is a replacement for the fossil fuel generators. So there are other battery power stations out there, but ours is a little bit different. Ours is a battery with a brain. So we use IoT and AI to learn the behaviours of the operator. And once we learn their behaviours, we can then accurately predict when that battery will run out of charge. And then we schedule its replacement on a just-in-time basis. So we basically get there before the battery runs out, and so we ensure continuous power at point of use.
So the technology looks at the power draw on the equipment that's being used?
So the traditional approach for batteries is to look at the average power draw. The problem with that is if, say you're using a high power equipment like welding, it might look like the battery will run out in 30 minutes. Whereas because we've learnt those tasks, we know that task finishes in 15 minutes, and then you might be on lunch break or setting up for the next job. So then we know that the battery will last longer. So it's a much more accurate way of predicting how long the battery will last.
You've been through a few prototype versions, and I think you're on version 2 now. So tell us, what have you learned from the initial prototype, and how have you adapted to the current version?
So with our prototype back in October 22, we said, right, let's concentrate on the technology, the power requirements. Let's see what capacity works best for the industries that we wanted to work in. And we didn't worry too much about the box. So we put that together, and it was quite successful. There was a lot of interest from the industry. And one thing that we learned from that was we'd ran the numbers to start off with, and we predicted how long the battery would last in theory. And what we realised was that when you're on site, there's a lot of setting up in between the actual pulling the trigger on the chop saw or on the road breaker. And so the battery was actually lasting a lot longer. So that's one of the advantages over using fossil fuel generators, because generators run throughout the day whether you're demanding the power or not. So from our version 1, we then took the same technology, adapted the box slightly, made it more manoeuvrable on site, and added a 110 volt output. And by adding that 110 volt as well as having the 230 volt, we were able to then work with a wider range of trial partners, and so we could start teaching our AI in different sectors, different industries. So that version 1.5 was quite difficult to manoeuvre on site. So with the funding and support available from the Clean Futures, we were able to design and build that version 2 from scratch. So it's a complete, from the drawing board up, we custom built the 110 inverter, so we were able to make that more efficient and reduce the size. And so we've reduced the overall size and weight of that unit whilst increasing its capacity and output.
What about scaling up in terms of production, or are there further prototypes to work on before you get to that stage?
So our version 2 is commercially available now. We're looking at completing sales in the utility industry. And as far as scaling up, our manufacturing is set up to produce 50 units a month without any further scaling up.
And generating the market for it as well. There may be reluctance to move away from the petrol Jenny.
So that's one of the first things that we looked at as a company, is that there were other battery generators available, but the industry wasn't adopting them. So we looked to see why the industry wasn't adopting the batteries, and we realised that all the charging is customer facing. So if you're in utilities and at the bottom of a trench and your battery runs out, you've got to pack up your tools and go and charge for 2 hours. You're not coming back to that job. So we realised that, the barrier to change, the barrier to adoption, is that charging. And so because we can take care of that charging for the customer, then we expect to have removed that barrier.
So that's a selling point. That's almost the USP of the product, isn't it? Is basically comparing it with what they're used to and pointing out all those disadvantages, and the fact that what you're producing actually addresses all of those.
Yeah, so that's the first part of the problem that we address is the fact that fossil fuel off-road machinery creates more emissions than cars. The second part is that electrification. Battery machinery costs more than fossil fuel. Setting up the charging infrastructure requires investment and expertise. And then charging the batteries normally takes a lot of downtime that the industry is not prepared for yet. They're not set up for. They're used to being able to just fill a jerry can full of fuel and top up the fossil fuel generator. So we, in effect, become that jerry can of fuel, and we bring that to site for the customer.
And quite sophisticated software behind what you do about knowing where the demand is, where the next unit's got to go to. It was quite impressive.
Yeah, so once we made that decision to charge the battery for the customer, you then have to make that process as efficient as possible. When it's customer facing, you don't have to make it efficient. The customer has to worry about that. So once you start thinking about energy in that proactive manner, even grid-connected energy now is reactive or scheduled. So like I say, when you make that decision to be proactive, there's such a wide scope of possibility with energy as a service.
And today, and any thoughts of Cohort 2?
Yeah, so the Clean Futures Accelerator has been brilliant with the funding available. That was great. We're a bootstrapped company. We're pre-revenue. We're self-funded. So the funding went a long way, but it's the business support that surrounds that as well. So we were able, as soon as we were notified that we were successful, we kick-started the project. We've in that 6-month period, we've designed from circuit board up every component of that power station, and we only received it on Saturday. I had to pick it up from customs on Saturday, so we took it right to the wire.
That's very quick. It must have been in people's heads or sketched out or on computers or something beforehand. I mean, it's a remarkable achievement in such a short space of time.
Yeah, so we one of the things that we're trying to do now is we've got a technology roadmap, and we're just trying to put a commercial roadmap to match that as well. And again, it's because there's such a wide scope of possibility with energy as a service that you have to concentrate on getting to market, getting that product, which we do have now with our version 2. And then you almost have to rein yourself in from chasing all the technology.
Excellent. David Collinson from PowerUp, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.